All night long, we are going to have analysis from our team of political pundits right over here. We have James Taylor helping us out tonight, and we have Brian Sobel with us here tonight. Of course, the first question that we're talking about is that Senate race with Kamala Harris, Loretta Sanchez. What do you think? The polling has been pretty clear. Both of them have been so far ahead in the top. Is it really going to be anyone but those two topping the ballots tonight?
Well, I think it's Kamala Harris comes out on top. Loretta Sanchez is second. You have the three Republicans in there that'll probably finish second, third, and third, fourth, and fifth. And then you've got a total field of 34 people, and everybody else is up for grabs.
Yeah, and you know, James, none of the Republicans have been polling very high here. I don't think anyone else has over 6% in the polls, but Duff Sondheim has some name recognition. He's the former chair of the Republican Party here in California. Do you think he's got a shot at all?
I don't. I looked at the numbers and they're just weak. Kamala Harris's are barely 30%. They're not even 30%. So even her numbers are low, even as the leader of this large pool of people. So I don't see it benefiting the Republicans, this large crowd of candidates. It just muddies them and loses them in the flow.
All right, let's turn to the presidential primaries taking place tonight now in New Jersey. The polls closed, and just minutes later, Hillary Clinton was already declared the winner. She's expected to come out and speak any moment now. So what do you think? Do you think she claims victory and ignores Bernie Sanders here on out, or what do you think her strategy is going to be?
I think she will claim victory. I think, you know, she's looking for that coronation moment that was stolen from her last night by the AP and NBC by preempting her nominee status.
I mean, was it stolen, or was that really a gift?
I would say it was a gift and a curse, because if her people don't turn out today, then it obviously strengthens Bernie's case if his people do, out of anger, do turn out. So I think it mostly hurt Hillary and benefit Bernie Sanders' campaign, but on another level, it seems like Hillary is now focusing her attention on Donald Trump.
And Brian, what do you think Bernie Sanders is going to do? Obviously, he's waiting for the polls to close here in California, even if Hillary Clinton is not going to wait, right? So he's not going to be speaking until 10 o'clock tonight. Do you think he's going to concede and get out of the race, or do you think he's going the distance?
No, I mean, if you asked me to place a bet, I'd place my bet on him going to the convention. He's got a huge amount of constituents and supporters who really have counted on him going all the way. And what he wants to do is to affect the platform at the convention with many of his ideas. And he can't do that quite the same way if he drops out.
That's right. I agree.
I think he's gonna go all the way, and then also try to affect the platform. We'll see about that. But let's talk really quickly about Donald Trump. He's been mired in this controversy for the last 2 days. All of this over that judge because he brought up his ethnicity, saying that because he is of Mexican descent, he cannot be fair. Today he walked it back just a little bit, but stopped short of apologizing. Is this going to hurt him moving forward?
It's going to devastate him. Latinos are registering in record numbers in the state of California and across this country. Other groups, African-Americans, women, are registering. Donald Trump is going to be answered by the American voters in November. I'm confident they will silence him.
All right, what do you think, Brian? Do you think he should have apologized?
I don't go quite as far as James does, and only because the track record for Trump is that he seems to be able to dodge some of these bullets.
Yeah, every bullet so far he's dodged has been kind of amazing, right?
So when it comes to the entire American populace, and remember, it's 50 elections. It's not a national poll. We watch these national polls, but it's state by state.
State by state.
And he's going to do well in a lot of states.
But this Trump University thing is going to be his swift boat. If Hillary pounces on it like she should, this is something that he won't be able to overcome, because poor people, working class people that support him are the very victims of this program that he's put forward.
All right, James Taylor, Brian Sobel, we'll be talking to them all throughout the night. I just want to point out that Donald Trump in the states that we have results in so far has over 80% of the vote. That's a good sign for him. That means that the electorate has confidence in him still, even despite this controversy. We'll see how the night unfolds. But for now, I'll send it back to you at the main set.
Continuing now with our Election Day coverage, and Proposition 50 is the only state measure that's on the ballot today. It would allow legislators to suspend lawmakers without pay. Now, this was prompted by a number of political scandals in the state legislature, including one involving the man that you see there, former San Francisco Senator Leland Yee, who is now serving a 5-year prison sentence for political corruption. Yee, as you may remember, was suspended from his post in the state Senate after his arrest, but he continued to receive a paycheck and benefits from the taxpayers. 2 other senators who were caught up in the separate scandals in 2014 also continue to receive their paychecks.
Well, as you might expect, a lot of people were pretty upset about all of that somebody who could be facing criminal charges was still getting a paycheck. Let's go over to Ross now and find out more about that. Ross.
All right, you guys, this has bipartisan support, a lot of outrage in the community over all of this. Do you think the voters are really aware of Prop 50, and do you think they're going to vote for it?
You have a thought, James?
Yeah, I think people are aware of it generically as political corruption, the political corruption ballot, and people are interested in cases like Leland Yee and others that have happened here in California where they do want some ability to recall these people if it happens. And this is California where propositions and referendums are a part of the Constitution, and it goes back to the 19th century, Hiram Johnson, Governor Weaver on forward to allow democratic accountability when corruption happens, and this is a part of that tradition.
Yeah, and Brian, can you explain just a little bit more what Prop 50 will do? This will actually define precisely how this should happen, the mechanism for changing
yeah,
this.
heretofore, if somebody were facing charges or anything else, they still received their state paycheck and their benefits. And what this proposition does is it says, if you're if you are suspended from time in office, you don't get paid and you don't get to stay on the benefits program, and it takes away that ability. It's important, and that's the reason why it has bipartisan support, of course, is that people can't find sense in somebody who's in that kind of situation still taking a paycheck.
Yeah, and James, so that leads us right to the question. Is there anyone against this? It just sounds like common sense that if you commit a crime, if you have a serious problem, you should not be drawing a paycheck.
No, I can't think off the top of my head what groups would or what interests would be inclined to oppose reform, political corruption reform. Except the politicians themselves.
All right.
That's about it.
That's Prop 50. It'll be interesting to see once those results start coming in. We'll send it back to you, Heather.
All right. Thank you very much.
So let's turn right now to our political analysts. Again, we're going to go over to James Taylor right here and Brian Sobel. You guys just watched the Hillary Clinton speech right there. What are your first impressions with all of that?
Different Hillary Clinton. Very even-keeled, came out very presidential. She took much of the Bernie Sanders talking points, put them right in the middle of her speech, which is a testament to what Bernie Sanders has brought to the campaign, and talked in the past tense with respect to Bernie Sanders.
And James, do you think it is enough? Do you think she's extending that olive branch well enough? Do you think Bernie Sanders is going to take it tonight?
Bernie Sanders is a mature, wise man who's been in government for 20, 30 years. He knows the game. He knows that he has to have a graceful exit at this point. It's gotten really muddy. A lot of people have been turned off by Bernie that were actually supporters of his, but the way he's tried to land this campaign, he needs to take tonight and pause. Let Hillary have this moment. Don't even acknowledge his intentions going forward. Let her have this moment. Stand down. Bernie Sanders should stand down at least tonight. If he wants to raise secondary questions tomorrow, raise new issues tomorrow, fine. But Hillary was deprived of this moment last night by the AP and NBC. I think the visual of Hillary Clinton coming out with her arms spread almost messianically is something that she deserves. And I think this country's been waiting for this moment for a long time. And now we have Hillary Clinton as the first woman nominee in American history.
So every candidacy has that defining moment where people really start to coalesce around them to really feel what they're all about. Was that it? Did we see it?
I don't know, because California is in play. We don't know how California is going to turn out tonight. That may change, not the end result, but speaking to what James is talking about, and that is her great moment, could be spoiled somewhat.
If she loses tonight, it's a mess tomorrow.
It is, absolutely.
But is it really going to matter at this point? Because she has clinched the nomination. Her calculation is that, unfortunately, I hate to say this out loud, but her calculation appears to be that California does not matter. She doesn't even wait for our polls to close here before basically coming out and making her accepting the nomination speech, even though, of course, we know it's not official. Is that going to hurt her here in California?
Well, no, because I would say most of the people today have already voted either by mail-in ballot or they've already been to the polls. And she's talking now a half hour before the polls close, so I don't think it makes a big difference.
But does Bernie Sanders come out tonight and say just that she doesn't care about California, that this is a write-off, that this is a rigged system, that she had these votes from the beginning of the campaign? She had the superdelegate.
I don't think he should use any of that negative language towards her about the system.
Well, we don't think
rigged.
he should. No one in the Democratic Party thinks he should, but will he?
I don't think so. I think we'll see how California goes tonight. If he upsets her in California. He's got some things to talk about, as James says, in the morning. Doesn't change the final calculus, but it does.
It gives him more influence in the platform.
Right, absolutely, and it keeps it moving, actually.
And it'll become more and more progressive. And out of her comments, she said the country is better, and we're better, the country's better because of Bernie Sanders' campaign. But she didn't say, I heard you, Bernie, and I got your message, and I'm going to implement your progressive agenda into my campaign platform. So that was something I was looking for her to say, is that I got it too, and I benefited from your campaign, not just the country in general.
All right, well, every night of the year we cover the news. Tonight it seems that we covered a big piece of history. Of course, California polls still open. We'll be covering the election, the primary results all night long. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, today Donald Trump did not actually apologize, but he said, quote, "It is unfortunate that my comments have been misconstrued as a categorical attack against people of Mexican heritage." So the big question right now tonight is, are people buying it? Are Republicans buying it? So let's go back to our political analysts right over here, James Taylor, Brian Sobel. What did you think of what Donald Trump had to say earlier today about all of this? Do you feel that he needed more of an apology in this particular case, or do you think he struck the right note without looking weak but took a step back?
Donald Trump is interesting because he has a rock in his hand that he used to break a whole bunch of glasses, and then he still has a rock in his hand. And we see the rock in his hand. The whole country, all 300 million of us see the rock in Donald Trump's hand. And we keep asking, does he have a rock in his hand? The fact that it took Mitch McConnell ongoing minutes and minutes, he never could admit that Donald Trump is a racist. If anyone needs to answer the question of whether Donald Trump is a racist, we need a new definition.
Isn't it interesting how so many people have been so unwilling to actually use the word racist, but now over the past 2 days, people are using it left and right?
Well, I think you hit a breaking point where if you hear things enough, you kind of say, hey, what else can we call this? And he walked it back. The problem with Donald Trump, and it's been this problem since the very beginning, is he just shoots from the lip. He doesn't think about what he's going to say until the moment it kind of falls out of his mouth, and he gets into so much trouble because of it.
That is such an interesting point. Shooting from the lip, and today at the 5 o'clock hour, we saw him speaking for only the second time now with a teleprompter. You have to wonder if his campaign is urging him to be more scripted, more careful, because his surrogates, are all facing this backlash and having to come out and make excuses, apologize, walk back, explain. In fact, he wasn't anywhere on the air yesterday. All of his surrogates were out, and you could tell that they were fumbling all over themselves to sort of walk this back a little. So in that speech, he said, people say I fight too much, but I did it to beat a rigged system. What did you think of that speech when he came out today?
I mean, he can talk about the rigged system, but the system worked for him. He won. So what is he talking about? Even if Bernie lost, the system worked for Bernie as well. If Bernie had won, and in fact, there are aspects of the proportional system that the Democrats have that actually benefited Bernie, even as a loser. He wouldn't have gotten nearly as far as he has without the system that exists. So, Donna Bazilla said on national television, complain about the system if you want to, but this is the system that everybody agreed was the system.
Okay, and really quickly, one more question, because people have been now defecting from Donald Trump. First, we saw this move towards unity. Now people are saying, like a senator from Illinois, there's no way I can support him. Today in the speech, Donald Trump said, quote, "I understand the responsibility of carrying this mantle and will never let you down." Obviously trying to placate these people. Is that enough?
At the end of the day, they have no other candidate, the Republicans, so they're going to have to support Donald Trump. But a very interesting phenomenon. Paul Ryan, I think, set the tone. I may support his candidacy. I don't always support
everything
what he says.
All right. Well, we'll be talking about this all night long, and we're also waiting for the polls to close right here in California. We'll bring those results to you and the rest of tonight's coverage, including listening to Bernie Sanders in Santa Monica. That's all coming up. Stay with us.
Polls closing here in California just about now. In fact, it is straight up 8 o'clock, so those polls are indeed closed. We want to get some reaction and some analysis now from our political reporter, Ross Palumbo. He is joined by analyst James Taylor and Brian Sobel.
Well, stand by, guys, because the polls just closed here in California, so we should be getting numbers in just about any second. And as soon as we do, we're going to bring them right out to you. I do want to say that New Mexico has just been called for Hillary Clinton. So she's won in New Jersey, Montana, New Mexico. She's leading in South Dakota with 78% of the vote. North Dakota was called, that caucus there, for Bernie Sanders. So let's talk about the speech that Hillary Clinton just gave moments ago. What do you think? Effective?
Effective. I liked it. She took her time with it. no shrieking and some of the criticisms that she's received. It was a really, really well done speech, and I love the old line that no political speech is too long. So this one was the right time. And so I thought overall that was an A+ speech.
The visual of Bill Clinton coming on stage, I think, is powerful. It sort of makes Americans think, do I really want to go through that again? Was that a good experience in the 90s? Let me see. You know, do we want to go back that way? And apparently the country's saying, yeah, at least the Democrats are.
What do you think of the results so far? 4 states, Hillary Clinton is either won in tonight or she's ahead, and Bernie Sanders only won. Of course, it was a caucus because he always does well in the caucuses.
Yeah.
Right.
Is this more bad news for Bernie Sanders?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. You know, he needed to come out of tonight with, you know, almost a sweep. What he does in California is important. You know, here we are in California where over the years we haven't been as important in some respects.
Well, not this year. It's everything this year, right?
Yep. And so tonight's really important. I'm waiting for these results because it could be really, really interesting.
What do you think of the calculation Bernie Sanders made basically to skip everything, even New Jersey, which is close to his home state, right? And to go all out for California. His strategy, he seems to be unwavering in. Is it going to work for him? Let's say he wins California.
He thinks there's something here and that there's a rationale going forward. If he can win California, he thinks he can argue to the superdelegates that they should support him. And we have to remember that the way this thing was set up from the beginning, either candidate would have had to win all of the contests by 85% all the way through to make the superdelegates irrelevant. So either candidate would need the superdelegates to pitch in to bring them across the finish line. Either way, even Hillary. So, you know, that's what we've had up to this point.
Well, in order to pull ahead, he needed 97% of all the delegates tonight. That is, frankly, at this point, numerically impossible. We'll wait to see those numbers when they come in California and see where we are. For now, though, we'll send it back to you, Kiva, Ken, Heather. All right. Yeah, we should point out that Fox News has already called the state of California for Donald Trump. That is no surprise. Obviously, he is going to win the state. The big question is, how much is he going to win by? He needs to stay over 80%. We've been saying it all night long, but it bears repeating to make sure that the entire party is with him at this point. So with those numbers in right now, let's go back to our analyst over here one more time, James Taylor, Brian Sobel. Those are the early numbers, right? So we don't really think that he's going to do too badly here in the state, but that's key, right? He really needs to stay over 80% tonight in order to prove that this party isn't disintegrating here in California. What do you think?
Well, yes, I think he has to have a resounding victory. Anything in the 80s is, of course, you know, is a slam dunk.
I'm looking at the big picture. 38 million, 40 million people in California. 117,000 have voted for Donald Trump. Only Republicans. This is a complete misreading of what's really happening in the electorate. I think there's a silent majority of voters who are going to speak loudly in November. What Donald Trump has done is tapped into a very small slither of people in the electorate who are Republicans. So has Hillary. Hillary, for example, has weaknesses going forward amongst independents. What she's done so far is done well amongst Democrats who are already converted, but she's not done well amongst independents, and that's where she's going to have trouble in the fall, and so is Donald Trump.
Let's stay on Republicans just for a moment longer because, you know, no Republican presidential candidate has won the state, I think, since 1988, right? Our electorate, 15% more Democratic voters in the state. That comes out to more than 2.5 million Democratic voters in the state of California. Yet we hear Donald Trump out on the campaign trail saying that he's going to turn this state red. Is that just a pipe dream? Is that just craziness? What do you think?
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing you would, and that is that it's a pipe dream. The registration doesn't break in any way in the Republicans' favor or Donald Trump in particular.
Okay,
so it doesn't show that he's bringing in new voters at all. What he's doing is encouraging people who previously voted before to get back in the game.
Yeah, so since we have dispelled that one myth, let's go to the other one. Donald Trump is very fond on the campaign trail of saying that he is turning Democrats into Republicans are going to vote for him. Have you seen any evidence of that?
He keeps making appeals to Bernie Sanders' campaign, but I don't think anyone who is a Bernie Sanders supporter that votes for Donald Trump was never seriously a Bernie supporter.
Yeah, when we saw him speak tonight, he said about Bernie Sanders that at least he was right on the TPP trade deal, that Hillary was dead wrong. He's trying to make this appeal to Sanders voters and drive that wedge between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Is that working?
Well, this is because Trump understands that he has tapped into some of the same things that Bernie Sanders has tapped into, which is folks that don't think government is working for them. Certain groups within America clearly don't think government works for them. And Trump is appealing to them, and Sanders is appealing to them on opposite sides.
All right, but here in California, Donald Trump is not going to be the story, at least tonight. He's well over 80%. The big story is going to be between Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and at least right now, Hillary Clinton is ahead. I'm going to send it back to you right now, Kiva, Ken, and Heather. All right, welcome back now to our You Decide election coverage. Let's look at the Senate primary here in the state of California. Kamala Harris, the Attorney General, is taking on 34 other candidates, and the polling has showed Kamala Harris long ahead by a big margin. Right now in the primary, she has 54% of the vote, with just about 8% of the precincts reporting to Loretta Sanchez's 24%. Well, this is amazing because Kamala Harris has been ahead for so long, but she hasn't been this far ahead. What do you think of the returns coming in so far?
It's surprising. She's outperformed what her polling suggested, and so this is a problem for Sanchez. But I do think with all of those extras involved, when these two people run up against each other in California, it's going to be much tighter, and Kamala's going to have a real challenge if Latino voters get behind Sanchez.
You know, it looks like only 8% of the precincts reporting, but I can say with almost complete authority, right, that it looks like this is going to be the race. Two Democratic women facing off for Barbara Boxer's seat.
And I think Kamala Harris is well known in the state. She has spent an enormous amount of time in Southern California campaigning. Northern California knows her very well. And Loretta Sanchez has had her issues that have been well publicized. When you knock somebody out once, it's a lot easier to knock them out again, and that's going to be the issue here.
I think you're right about that. Let's take a look right now at the GOP numbers in the state of California. Donald Trump has had a large lead so far tonight. 8% of precincts reporting. Donald Trump right at 80%. John Kasich 12. Ted Cruz 7. Their number is irrelevant. Donald Trump's number very relevant, right at 80. He's holding here at the party, just what we expected. Good sign for him.
Oh yes, absolutely. I don't think well, obviously nothing was in doubt on
him winning.
It was like, is it going to be more than 80% or whatever? I always kind of chuckle in these things, though. Here you have two people that are in the race. Everybody knows. Not in the race.
But but it's a little bit of a protest
absolutely
vote. Still just a little bit, and I'm surprised that the margin isn't a little closer, that he's not below 80.
The fact that California Republicans gave him 80% of their support in light of all of this controversy is stunning, that many principled philosophical conservatives would not have a protest vote for Kasich or Cruz.
Right, but look at Paul Ryan today saying he disagrees with what he says, but he's still going to support him.
Absolutely.
Let's take a look right now at the Democratic numbers. Let's put them on the board. Hillary Clinton 64%, Bernie Sanders 35%. Wow, that is a much larger spread than we were anticipating, with only 8% of the vote in. Do you think Hillary Clinton is just going to have an enormous margin here? They've been so close in the polling.
Absolutely. This is really a pretty surprising result thus far. It's a huge margin.
We can't see where they're coming in from.
Right. Do you think it's because it's coming in the urban areas? Do you think there's any chance of catching up?
Those are big numbers. I'll repeat that. It's tough, but it does depend on where they come from, and also just in general, the way people have voted in California has changed over time. People now vote by mail-in ballot. It's very similar to what people do when they go to the polls. That was never historically the case. Absentee ballots, the old name, really referred to the people who couldn't get to the polls. That tended to skew service members and skewed to the elderly, to people who had physical disabilities, that sort of thing. You could kind of get a grasp on who they were. Now that all the bets are off on that now.
Right. So these are largely absentee or mail-in ballots.
And that's what Hillary's been winning throughout this entire primary, is the mail-ins.
So this is a bad sign for Bernie Sanders.
Oh, absolutely.
Even this early on.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to have all these returns as they come in tonight. So we'll stay with us. We'll be right back. We're going to take a short break as those numbers keep coming in.
All right, we have some new numbers now. This is on Prop 50. Heather?
That's right. That's the proposition that would basically suspend lawmakers, those who are caught up in any sort of scandals, those that are arrested. Let's send it on over now to Ross Palumbo with those latest numbers.
All right, let's take a look at the numbers coming in right now. We are anticipating that this is going to pass by a pretty large margin. Look at the 76% of voters saying yes, 24% saying no and 10% of the precincts reporting. We don't really expect that this is going to get any closer tonight, do we?
No.
I don't. This is one of these pieces of legislation that's or propositions that's sort of a no-brainer.
It's kind of a no-brainer. And who's going to be against something like this? Holding legislators accountable.
I would think the same people that would be against term limits would be the politicians themselves because it affects them.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the Democratic race here throughout the state of California. Hillary Clinton has had a wide margin of about 30% point lead throughout the night. And here we are right now. What is this? 8% of the precincts reporting right now. Hillary Clinton, 64%. Bernie Sanders, 35%. There it is again, that 30 percentage point lead.
Yeah.
Amazing. This is surprising, isn't it?
Yeah. This is if this is any indication as to what is to come for the rest of the night, then this is a terrible underperformance by Bernie Sanders.
Yes, and totally unexpected. I mean, people thought this would be a very close race tonight. James is right, depending on who's checked in and that sort of thing. But that's a big lead.
That's a huge lead. And Bernie Sanders, if he does not win California, in fact, if he loses California by 30 percentage points.
He has to come out tomorrow and just step down.
Well, what do we think if he comes out tonight at 10 o'clock? I mean, will he see the writing on the wall at this point, or what do you think?
He will alienate, I think, a lot of people that would that otherwise think that his campaign was an honorable campaign. I just think he would lose so many people if he decided to challenge Hillary's campaign, her nomination, should I say, excuse me, at this point. It's like, you've made your point, you've impacted the platform, now stand down, you've lost. And if he decides to fight this, I think it's going to get really ugly for Democrats.
Yeah, he's about 300 pledged delegates behind. That's what those are the numbers he's going off of, the pledge, not the super delegates.
Right.
So if he gets 30 percentage points behind her, he's going to get far less than half of the delegates here in California.
Yeah.
Really, is there any path forward? At
No,
that point?
the math doesn't work for him. I think the question really was he going to stay in the race into the convention? If he gets blown out tonight, he's got to take a hard decision about what he's going to do. He could make the case, hey, I won California. You know, huge number of people in the state, and so I still have a viable place to go.
The psychology of the race has moved on, and I think as of tonight, when Hillary was on that stage, the voters are ready also, because there's sort of the business hanging on with Bernie. It's like, we want to move on to this next stage, and now we can move on to this next stage unless Bernie says not yet.
Okay, let's look at the GOP numbers coming in across the state right now. Donald Trump has had about 80% all night long. We see right here with just 4% on the GOP reporting right now, 78%. Kasich 11, Cruz 8, and so Donald Trump a little below 80.
Well, and John Kasich should be very happy with this performance.
Maybe he'll re-enter the race.
A little surprising, actually, but do you think we're going to see the spread change at all throughout the night, or do you think Trump is going to stay primarily around 80?
I think he'll go down a little bit, but not much.
But not much.
Okay, well, let's go back to Hillary really quickly, because I want to talk about, we keep talking about Bernie Sanders. What's he going to do? What does he do moving forward? Let's talk briefly about what does Hillary Clinton do? What is her next move now, moving forward tomorrow? There's a large anticipation that President Barack Obama in New York tomorrow is going to give the endorsement to Hillary Clinton, even if Bernie Sanders doesn't drop out. That is definitely going to put the big thumb on the scale, and maybe first Bernie Sanders' hand a little bit. But what does Hillary Clinton do with that?
Yeah, I think she has to get her voters out, mobilize, get Obama involved, get Michelle Obama involved, Deval Patrick, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, the surrogates, to get them involved. But I think there's a powerful opportunity for Hillary Clinton to use Ronald Reagan against Donald Trump when Donald Trump continues in California to harp on this wall. Imagine the power of a visual of Ronald Reagan split screen with Donald Trump saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, where conservatives here in California and across the country have always opposed authoritarian personalities, authoritarian systems. And so for Donald Trump to emerge as an authoritarian personality, a charismatic personality, and Republicans continue to support him when he's going against everything they've principally believed in for the past 50 to 75 years, this is something deep that we're witnessing.
And how much has changed in just a year? Remember, there was a time when Hillary Clinton's approval rating was actually pretty high. Remember that? More than a year ago? Now it's sky high. What does she do to change that?
Well, I think, from this point forward, she has to start talking in terms that we heard tonight. Very presidential, well-written speeches.
Keep the pitch.
Keep the pitch right, sound bites that we can remember. I think that's what she has to do.
All right. It's going to be really interesting to see how she moves forward tomorrow, even though
in
our focus is
1964,
on
she was there with Goldwater here in California. She saw the power of that one commercial with the young girl and the flower. That single advertisement cause a landslide.
Yeah.
Along with the politics involved. But I'm saying that visual, I think, would be so powerful if the Democrats were to use it. Ronald Reagan against Donald Trump by talking about the wall in the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, and that's the famous or infamous atom bomb
Tear
commercial.
down
maybe.
this
Yes.
wall.
Yeah,
The
child with
64, yes.
Tear down the wall,
wallflower.
Donald Trump. Tear down the wall.
All right, we're going to keep watching those numbers as they come in.